Hi all, sorry I couldn't be there today, but you know where I'm at. What we're going to talk about today is this thing called angle bisectors. So what we talked about on Friday was that when we had two small angles, we could add them together to get a whole. What we're going to talk about today is that bisector. So we, excuse me, we talked about the segment bisectors, that when we had a midpoint or something that bisected that line segment, it cut it in half and each segment was equal. Well, angle bisectors are a ray, is a ray that divides an angle into two congruent parts. Now remember, you have the notes in front of you, so I ask that you do take notes as I'm doing this. Why do angle bisectors always have to be rays? Well, we can't have a line that goes through it, and we always have a ray that starts at an endpoint and goes on to infinity on that side. Congruent angles are angles that have the same measure. Okay, tick marks, remember we did those with our segment bisectors, are used to show that angles are congruent. So here we have the measure of angle x is congruent to the measure of angle y. So we can say that these two angles are congruent by putting those little tick marks on it. Now we've seen that again in segment bisectors. So here's an example. We're given that BD bisects ABC, angle ABC. So this ray right here bisects the whole angle. We know the measure of angle ABD, this one right here, is 6x plus 3. We also know that the measure of DBC is 8x minus 7. So again, we know they're congruent because that ray BD bisects it. So in order to figure out what x is and find the measure of ABD, we can set them equal. Okay, because we know that they're equal measures because it is bisected. So we can say that 6x plus 3 equals 8x minus 7. And then we would just solve this. So I want you to hit pause and solve. Okay, so hopefully you solved this. So we would subtract 6x from both sides, and we would be left with 3 equals 2x minus 7. And then we can add 7 to both sides. And we would be left, I'm going to move up here, we would be left with 10 equals 2x and divide by 2, so x is 5. Okay, to find the measure of angle ABD, we go ahead and take that value, so we know the measure of angle ABD is 6x plus 3, and we can substitute that 5 value in. So we would say 30 plus 3, or the measure of angle ABD is 33 degrees. Okay, so remember we can set them equal, both measures of the angles, because they are bisected, therefore they are congruent, so we can set them equal to each other. Here's another example. If BD bisects angle ABC, we know the measure of ABD is 5x plus 24. And we know the measure of DBC is 15x minus 6. Find the measure of ABC. So what we're going to have to do is again set them equal because we know they're congruent. So we would say 5x plus 24 is equal to 15x minus 6. So again, pause and go ahead and solve. When we solve, we would subtract 5x. 24 equals 10x minus 6, and go ahead and add 6 to both sides. This would give us 30 equals 10x. Divide by 10, so x is a value of 3. We need to substitute this into one of them to get the measure. Okay, so let's put this into the top equation, because we need to find the overall measure of ABC, we can substitute this in here. And this is going to give us the measure of this angle here, okay? But because we know that they're congruent, it's also going to be the measure of DBC. So this gives us a value of 39 degrees. Because we know they're congruent, this is 39 degrees as well. We are looking for the measure of ABC. Okay, so all we have to do is just add those two values together. So the measure of angle ABC is going to be 78 degrees. Okay, so again, be careful with what they're asking you so you can give them the correct answer. Okay, we're going to skip down to example 4. So this has a lot of bisecting. Okay, so we have to figure out what angle is, or what ray is bisecting an angle. So we know that QR is bisecting PQT. So PQT is the big one, and QR is bisecting that. So why don't we make some lines that show that they're being bisected? They're equal. We also know that QS is bisecting RQT. So we know that these two smaller angles are congruent as well. If we know the measure of PQT, the whole, is 15x minus 77, and we know the measure of SQT is 3x minus 11, we have to find all the angles. Okay, so how many of these small angles are going to make up the whole? Okay, so we know that there's 2 right here, but will there be 2 here? There sure will be. Okay, so we know that 2 of these small angles will be here and there, so we have 4. So we have 4 of these 3x minus 11 angles. I hope that makes sense. And that's going to equal the whole. What we would have to do is distribute, so you would have 12x minus 44 equals 15x minus 77. We can move the 12x to one side, and then we would say negative 44 equals 3x minus 77, and then go ahead and add the 77. So we would have 33 equals 3x, and x has a value of 11. Okay, now we're going to ignore all this because we're going to go back. Okay, we need to figure out all the measures of the angles. If we can figure out the measure of SQT, okay, so that is 3x minus 11. We know the value of x is 11, so this would be 33 minus 11, or 22. So we know the measure of SQT is 22. Okay, so let's write that over here. The measure of angle SQT is 22 degrees. But we also know that it's congruent to the measure of the angle RQS. RQS is also 22 degrees because remember they are congruent because of that angle bisector. We can add these 2 degrees together to get this measure here. So we can figure out the measure of angle RQT by just adding these 2 together, and that would give us 44. But because these are congruent, this angle is congruent to PQR, we know that they have the same measure. And to get the measure of the whole thing, that angle PQT, we add together our 2 44-degree angles, which gives us a value of 88 degrees. So you just found all of the missing angles by doing a little math. I hope this works and helps you. Your homework is worksheet 3. Go to the sub and ask her for it. You have the rest of the period to work on it. If you have questions, I will be here Wednesday morning about 7:30. So you don't have to email me, just come in, okay? So I will see you all Wednesday. Have a great day, and goodbye.